Steering wheel, somebody tell him to give it to me.
There's something loose between my legs.
I don't know. Let go!
I'm heavier than a freaking boat.
Nothing he's could say can make that any better.
Yeah, nobody. No more radio for the rest of the race.
I'm going home. You.
Hello and welcome to DRS FC, an F1 podcast by soccer nerds. We are here to review the SãO Paulo Grand Prix, which was just, in a word, chaotic. I've got several people here to help me review it. I'm going to start by saying hi to Megan because Megan said in the preview that she wanted chaos. Megan, are you satisfied with yourself?
Sorry for party rocking, friends. I just went a little too hard.
You did, and so did the race and the rain. Donald, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling drier than the drivers do, probably.
Probably still. Yeah, it was just outrageous. Eboni, how are you doing?
I'm doing better than Lando.
Aren't we all? And Deepti, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. Still recovering from what was just a chaotic weekend.
It was so chaotic. And honestly, I just feel like if we try to go event by event, topic by topic, we'll be talking for 3 hours. It was a sprint weekend. Sprint qualifying was wild. The sprint race was wild. Grand Prix qualifying was wild. The Grand Prix itself was wild. There's so many things that happened. So I think we're just going to have like a big open discussion about everything. But I do want to hit kind of the main points because Grand Prix qualifying was just outrageous. And did any of us, here's a good question. Deepti, this might not pertain to you because you actually were in a favorable time zone. You're not now, but you were then. Did anybody wake up and watch that live? Because it was 5:30 a.m. Eastern time is when they moved it to on Sunday. And I love F1, but your boy needed to sleep.
I watched the P3. That was about it.
Look, about what time was that going on for you? Because like that's still very early.
Like, wasn't that like 6:30ish?
Look, wow. I'm gonna tell you this. We had the fallback. We lost daylight saving on Sunday. I got my hour. I got my extra hour.
Yeah. It
wasn't raining where I was, and also I went to go cheer on some friends in the New York Marathon. So I had things to do, and a 5:30 wake up call was not it.
I engaged in a time-honored F1 fan tradition of consuming qualifying via my Twitter feed and being like, excuse me, what? He did what?
It was wild watching it live because for some reason Deepti was also awake and we watched P3 together in the chat and I was like, they're going to wake up and everyone's going to be like, what just happened? And now we have a race to watch after watching that unfold. That was magical.
Probably the worst part is like after waking up to all of that, I was like, wow, if you'd watched that, you probably need a cigarette to bring yourself down. Nope, can't do it. Get right back in the car. Let's go.
I was actually I'm 5 hours ahead of Eastern time. And so it was a favorable time for me, but I was heading to a pub to watch the Arsenal women's match. So I was tracking it as well on Twitter. And I was just questioning what was happening. There were too many updates. I don't know how the social media admin kept up with everything, but it was definitely immediately put on my watch on replay list.
So I have a question like right off the bat because, okay, so if in case people don't know, it's supposed to be split. You're supposed to qualify on Saturday, the race is on Sunday. That's the way that it works. But because there was so much rain and torrential rain, and they kept on giving us like the 15-minute updates, like we'll have another update in 15 minutes. And that went on for probably like an hour and a half, maybe. And then they were like, yeah, we're losing daylight. We're going to call it. We're not going to do. And then they were like, well, we don't know what we're going to do. How do we set a grid? Or do we use the sprint race? Do we use practice, which is not a competitive session? Like what is in the rule book? The rules state if it's not a sprint weekend, apparently the rules have something to do with that. They know what to do. But since it was a sprint weekend, they didn't really have anything. Like it kind of astounds me how many rules just straight up aren't written down in F1, but they didn't know what to do. So then we heard that qualifying was going to be day of the race, and there was going to be a 4-hour period after qualifying, and then the race was going to start. So they also bumped up the race as well, 90 minutes when they had to do both on the same Sunday. And my question to y'all is, should we just do it this way from now on? Like, could we just like qualify and then the 4-hour break? Like, can we just do everything on Sunday? Just have the practice sessions Friday, Saturday? Yeah, Megan, how you feel about that?
Well, I'm going to tell you that for money reasons, F1's not going to do that, but it would be fun.
Fair.
I'll also say I do feel a little bad for the drivers because, you know, their kind of regular race setup was probably a little messed up. Like how soon to the race do you eat? How early are you getting up? How caffeinated are you? All that kind of stuff. But I just want one small note. Part of the reason none of this is written down for qualifying is that this format of qualifying has only existed for like 10 years. Every 10 years, they're like, we're going to change everything. And so one of the fun aspects, I think, about F1, for annoying as the rules are, is that they are pretty fluid from year to year. And honestly, them not being written down sometimes allows for shows like us to debate, should we just do this forever?
No, I actually really appreciate that. And I also appreciate your framing of like, it's only been 10 years. Like, I feel like they could have wrote something down in 10 years, is all I'm saying.
They had paper in 2011.
But
maybe even a pen by 2014.
They just counted on Fernando remembering it all and passing the lore on to the children.
Exactly. No, I think as much as it maybe like time-wise would work out, I think... Well, number one, the drivers would have to wake up extra early, like what Megan was saying. And I don't know if y'all follow Esteban Ocon on Twitter, but he posted a video of him setting his morning alarm for 4:31 a.m. 31 because that's the number on the car that he uses. But and then we'll get to this. But when he did well, he was like, you know, that extra minute of sleep was worth it. Well worth it. But then also, you know, with crashes and like other stuff happening to the car, any damage, the mechanics need time to fix it. And again, we'll get to this, but sometimes there's too much damage to fix in just a couple hours, and I think having like one night is better so that all the drivers are able to actually race.
No, that's actually a good point, because we did lose Albon from this race because he tore up the car in qualifying, and there was just no time to fix the kind of damage that he had. So that, I think, is a good point. And of course, Megan's point about there, you know, these are events that we like to watch, but they're also just TV shows. So they're not really going to give up a time slot. That makes a lot of sense. Donald, go ahead.
Is this where I can ask my question? My main takeaway from this weekend? Why the hell did this happen? Like, for real. Like, I think that most fans, yeah, we get the football games that have a bunch of, torrential rain and people are sliding around and you can't run the ball 2 yards. And everyone's like, yeah, this is cool. Players in soccer, we have we're all used to the 15-minute delay, 30-minute delay. Oh, it's lightning, only for it to be postponed and played on another day. Because really, the long and short of it is fans don't like watching stuff happen in the torrential rain, and that includes racing. And I mean, with all I know we'll get to all the crashes and all the slipping and sliding and the time thing, and the fact that this race actually, while there was some racing, for a lot of it, it just felt unsafe. Like you looked into the cameras of the drivers, and you're like, what are they driving in? Because you can't see. And I just felt they could have just waited till Monday. And yes, and especially with the fact that there's a break, right? It's not like there's a race coming up next weekend. They could have raced on Monday with a cleaner track and maybe had a better opportunity, give some people a time to fix their cars and stuff like that, instead of just saying we're just going to wing it. But I get that why they wanted to do it with the TV contracts, but sometimes the flexibility needs to include safety in it.
So it's not actually the TV contract that's the problem, because the TV contract, like, it's going to be honored either way. The problem is tickets at the event, because if you don't show it on Sunday, you have to refund those tickets, which I don't know the financial state of Interlagos, but was a huge deal 3 years ago. Time is meaningless. At Spa, when they only did a certain amount of laps, and that allowed for them to not have to give refunds. And essentially what happened is that Spa would have likely had a financial issue and been unable to host moving forward. But I agree, like, it was clearly unsafe. What Deepti was talking about with the number of crashes we had in qualifying, all of those cars that crashed in qualifying had some sort of major issue during the race, which I can't remember which announcer pointed it out, but it was clear that those cars weren't safe to drive. I mean, they weren't like spectacularly unsafe, but they clearly weren't fully safe for drivers if they started immediately having issues. And so it sucks. F1 has been really lucky that they have not had a driver death in F1 series. They have had one in the F2 series semi-recently, actually a good friend of Pierre Gasly. But stuff like this always makes you really nervous, because all it would have taken was one person accidentally spinning out in the wrong spot, or somebody's debris getting launched and accidentally hitting someone else's car in the perfect way. And that is the kind of scary reality of F1, is that stuff like that can happen. The last driver to die in F1 was Jules Bianchi, and he died during a wet race because he slid off into a tractor crane that was not supposed to be on the track.
I mean, and then you hear Ollie Behrman on the radio saying, like, this is unsafe. I don't want to die. Like, there was a reason, like, immediately after that race that new Instagram popped up from the players. It was like, it's basically like a PA, like their union essentially, like, because immediately after it was all of a sudden it was there, and we're just like, oh snap, like it was not safe. Like, everyone agrees it was not safe.
Yeah, and the Grand Prix Drivers Association is what it's like formally called. You'll hear it abbreviated the GPDA. It's chaired by George Russell right now. It used to be Checo at one point. But in the past, they have famously, and we'll talk about this in the off season sometime because it's like really interesting. They famously did a driver stage-in, so they did not race, and they all had a big slumber party together in South Africa, because it wasn't a safe race. And in history, like, more in the older times of F1, but like, drivers have said, like, I refuse to drive, this is unsafe. And I sort of wish that the modern F1 drivers would do that stuff. This most recently came up last year during the start of the season in Saudi Arabia. They had like active missiles going off next to the track because there were missiles being fired from Lebanon into Saudi Arabia. And there was a discussion, are the drivers going to walk off this race? My understanding, and this is like reading between the lines, is that they were told by F1 in no uncertain terms, you will be racing. But something like this, like in a large number, I think fans would have understood. Like Donald said, it was very clear from the footage that it was not a safe experience. And it is a bummer because it was an enjoyable race, right? Like, I'm not going to deny that I didn't like watching it, but there's also this gross feeling of like, I really hope nobody crashes because this could be really bad.
Yeah, exactly. And Eboni, you mentioned Ollie Behrman's radio call. He wasn't the only driver. Like, several drivers had him. Off the top of my head, I can remember Oscar Piastri also several times before the red flag in the race came out was like, this isn't safe. I can't see where I'm going. And you can hear the engineers just like, oh, you're doing great. You're doing great. Like, keep staying. Like, obviously stay out there. But yeah, so he was like, this is totally unsafe. I can't even see like where the track goes. After the straight. And then I think Colapinto also, not necessarily asking his team to like talk to the FIA and say like, we need a red flag, but he was saying that he was currently on inters and he's like, no, I need wet tires. It's not safe for inters. And ironically, he was the one whose crash did end up getting the red flag out there. So the player safety question is definitely huge. And besides that, I think it's a question of like, strategy in this race where teams correct to use inters for most of the race. Should they have gone to wet tires first? It's hard to say. And I think the tire issue was a really big one for all of this. So I want to ask you guys, do you think it seemed like, especially in Oscar's case and Franco's, like he was asking for different tires and the people on the pit wall were like, no, just stay out there on inters. That's what we're doing. But if a driver asks for something, they're obviously the ones in the car and like seeing the conditions and feeling them. Should the pit wall just kind of go with what they say, or still look at the data and try to like the weather radar and try to figure it out?
Well, I'll say this, going back to Megan's comment about Saudi Arabia. I think, part of the reason why they drove that race was there was probably some geopolitical influences that were promptly considered before the safety. So I'll leave that there. But I think, again, it's if you give a mouse a cookie, that's probably how they're looking at it. It's not just the, wet tires versus intermediate. It's, the strategy of who overtakes who, right? Like those are all things that, a driver may say, no, I don't want him to I don't want to give up my spot, right? But the call comes in from above and they have to do it. Finally, when it just comes to racing in wet, we don't like driving with people who are in rain, right? How many people do we know out in the street who should not be behind a scooter when it rains? There's a whole city of Cleveland that cannot drive when it rains or if it's threatened to rain. And now we're asking
Cleveland stray.
Shots fired.
I'm from Michigan. Cleveland's getting strays, just like Lance Stroll's getting strays. But I think the idea here is like, we don't like it when we're on the same street with people who can't drive. There's clearly people on this grid who cannot drive, Lance Stroll. And at the same time, you have rain added to these elements to the point where, like I said, when we're seeing the on cam, these guys can't see to the corner. And there's a lot of corners in this track. So if they can't see to the corner, how do we expect them to race at their best and also race within the confines of safety? And with guys sliding everywhere, like at a certain point, it just became, in a way, unwatchable because you're like, oh, I can't get excited about any moves, right? I can't get excited about, Alpine, because every time Alpine made a turn, I'm like, is this the turn that one of them slides out and ends this dream for them? Thankfully, it didn't. But there was other guys further down the grid where it did because, that this rain is unpredictable and the intermediate splits, it doesn't matter. Like you can lock up very quickly in dry weather, add as much rain as they got. This race probably shouldn't have been ran, at least on time. They can, there's things that they can wait for, and a clear track would have made for an equally exciting race in my mind.
Well, and I'll just say, Deepti, your question is like a really fundamental one, and it relies on like the team trusting the driver and the driver also testing their team's recommendation. Lando almost won a race in Sochi a couple of years ago, and that fundamental question came out after the race. He was like, I knew what tire we should have been on. It wasn't the right tire. And the kind of negative feedback, I feel like I'm always shitting on Lando, sorry guys, but the feedback that came out after is like, you should have been more demonstrative on the radio. Like if you thought that we made the wrong call, you need to tell us we made the wrong call. And that's one of those things that's like a maturity thing. Some drivers are better at it than others. Like unfortunately, Max is really good at it. Like he's very good at talking to it and just saying like, I don't agree with this decision. We're not going to do it. Carlos Sainz is another one who's going to be like, F your strategic math. I think this is a better decision. We're going to do plan C because I said we're doing plan C. And so I think it's hard because in that moment, that's like one more thing for the driver to think about. And it's just like a maturity in driving situation. I don't know. Sometimes in the moment, the team is more aware of like how much rain is coming or has the tire data from other teams to know what's going on, and they can't communicate that quickly enough to the driver. So I don't know that there's a hard and fast, like always trust the driver's instincts, but they're the ones risking their lives. They're the ones like in the car. Chances are they're going to feel instinctively kind of what they want. And unfortunately, it's like their mistake to make.
No, so I think that last point you made is why I'm kind of like, I don't know, maybe when it's raining, the rules change a bit because we saw, I know you brought up Sochi, but we saw earlier this year where they left the tire call to Lando and he made the wrong one. They told him you can either put on the mediums and they'll last, or you can put on the softs and like Chase Lewis or whatever. I think that was the ultimatum they gave him, and he was always going to choose the soft tires. And then he didn't catch Lewis and they started to go, and he was like, these are the wrong tires. And it's like, well, yeah, you shouldn't. Y'all have the data. He doesn't. So don't make him make that decision. But maybe when it's raining, it's a little bit different. But even to me, the tires aren't really the point. I know Lewis was on live TV, kind of ribbing Stefano Domenicali, who is the head of F1, talking about they need better wet tires and better blankets. But like that's one issue. I think the main issue for me is kind of what Donald's been talking about is the visibility. It was just impossible to see. And even though everybody's lights, they usually see the lights on when they're charging the car, but when it's wet, they have them on. Kind of just like when you're driving in the rain, you're supposed to have your headlights on. It's a similar situation. But even when you were on the onboard, no clue. No clue if you're going to see any red lights at any moment. And these cars are going fast as hell. And all of a sudden start to see like blinks of like pink and then red. And you're like, oh, there's a car there. But if that car happens to be braking or if it's sliding or anything like that, you could run straight into the back of it. And that's the kind of crash that would be really, really bad. Like when it's sliding off and you're spinning and hitting a wall, those don't feel good. But it's when cars collide with one another that things get really, really unfortunate in F1. So I kind of agree. Maybe the weather, you get more input to the driver, but in terms of like just having them make the calls, I just don't think they have enough info and are never going to have enough info than the teams have. They're focusing on too much already.
And guess what? These cars don't have windshield wipers.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can sit there and go, oh, just, put it on the high setting and the water will beat off. But also with Lando, like he had the whole thing with he had just pitted and then Colapinto, goes into a wall and breaks out the red flag, and he's like, "Oh, so now everyone gets to change their tires now?" And they're like, "Yep, sorry."
Okay.
Like, yeah, I knew you were gonna get to it.
I've been happy to have this conversation because I don't think I've listened to a lot of other podcasts, and I know this is just kind of like a OG, kind of like walk uphill in the snow both ways.
Sucks the rain, but cool.
Yeah. Like this is kind of like old school mentality. Like, yeah, of course you just have to drive in the rain. Sometimes it's going to be dangerous. You get paid a lot of money. That seems to be where most people come from because I haven't heard too many podcasts or TV segments really asking the question that Donald asked us, should this even happen? So like, I'm glad we had that conversation. But now let's talk about the races themselves because I have a lot to say. Because McLaren continued to be stupid from the sprint race.
Is McLaren the new Ferrari? I'm just saying. Many people are asking.
I am one of those many people because they made so many dumb mistakes. One, in the sprint race, you talk to everybody, you get on the same page. And what was it? A lap or two into the race, Lando's like, hey, we talked about this. What's going on? And they're like, just keep driving. Like, how are y'all already not on the same page and not even 3 laps into the race? And he wanted them to swap. And there was a moment because Oscar got pole, Lando was second. And at the time, Leclerc was third, falling back a bit, but Verstappen was behind him. And Verstappen was kind of trying to battle Leclerc, and they were trying to get as many points to Lando as possible. So the question was, when are you going to make that swap? When are you going to have Lando lead the race so that you can have both the McLarens just drive off, leave everybody else behind? They didn't do it. They kept waiting. They were trying to find the right time. Suddenly Max passes Leclerc, and now they're really panicked. Then they finally do it just before a virtual safety car. Mm-hmm. They got so lucky because if that virtual safety car would have come out before they had a chance to do this, Oscar was winning that race. Or who knows, they try to make the swap, they mess it up, and then they hit each other or go slow, and then Max wins that race. Like they were so close to a super chaotic scenario.
I wanted it to yakety sax where Lando gets hit by Oscar and then somehow takes out Max, but totally misses Charles. In my head, I see it. I can picture the diagram, but it was not to be. But no, you're right. Like it was a fair amount of dumb decisions and a fair amount of like radio chatter that didn't need to happen. It did not seem like the team kept insisting that the drivers had talked about this before, and it did not seem like the drivers knew that they had. I don't know if it was like, hey, we're going to have this conversation and they forgot to have it. Like, I don't know what happened because it did not seem like the drivers were clued in to the switch or what was going to potentially happen. It sounded like the team thought that Oscar was aware that he would need to make the switch at some point. It was just bad management.
I mean, it was also just like whatever happened in sprint carried over into the actual race because it was just a bad McLaren day, which we've been saying quite a bit for the last couple of races. So I don't know if this is Oscar just being like, fuck you, I'm out of here, or I should be number one, or whatever it is. But there's no trust between the two drivers. There's no trust between the drivers themselves as a whole with the team, and there's no trust in McLaren with even in their own like paddock. So there's just a lot happening in that whole ecosystem, and it's all it's doing is just giving Max the championship, even in a spectacular fashion, because he had a fantastic race.
I was just going to say, between the sprint race where McLaren was 1-2 and the actual race, the lack of trust was palpable. And it's like you said, the drivers don't trust the mechanics and the heads. The heads don't trust the drivers don't trust each other. And oh yeah, both of them learned that they really thought they could drive, but they can't. And they need perfect conditions for them to do what they do in spite of everything. When there's not perfect conditions, they can't be in spite of themselves. And that's McLaren in a nutshell. So I'm absolutely confused at how they have made it this far, because they have decided to, put the lack of trust aside, but that is what is shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly. And they may lose the Constructors' Championship if they keep it up.
I just want to defend Oscar for a second. I don't think he is giving a big FU to McLaren or to Lando and saying that he needs to be driver one, because in both the sprint and the actual race, he swapped places like immediately after he was told. I think it's more miscommunication or just not being on the same page of when that's supposed to happen. I feel like he just waits for the team orders to do it and he does it immediately. That wasn't true maybe in like previous races, but these last two, and especially this one, for both the sprint and this one, he did give up his spot and was doing what he could to help. But of course, like, Lando didn't capitalize, so what was the purpose?
That part.
Let's talk about that part, because yes, Oscar pulled out a great lap to qualify ahead of Lando for the sprint race. So that just created a situation for McLaren where they were going to have to somehow get Lando ahead of Oscar. And yes, it got complicated because the pace of not only Leclerc in the Ferrari, but also Max was also like they kind of, it feels like they fixed their race pace problem, which is now a big worry for everybody else. And we'll talk about Max later. But that was one problem. The real problem is that Lando, again, qualifies really high. He's on pole for this race, the Grand Prix. What happens? Turn one. Anybody could have predicted it. There goes George Russell right on by him. Like he was like,
it didn't even get to turn one.
That's also true.
George Russell saw a Tommy Hilfiger shirt and he said, "Oh, I'm gonna go get that. I'm gonna reach right past you. I'm gonna go grab that extra long shirt."
It was just so wild to me. And then this was like the worst case scenario for Lando as well, because not only did he have to rely on McLaren making good calls, which they did not, because they opted to come in and pit when you know the kind of race you're having, you're going to get a red flag. Just wait. Keep holding on. The McLarens are good on their tires. There's no reason to rush it. You have track position. They make the dumb call, and that allows Max, who absolutely flew. I mean, again, we'll talk about him later. But right now, this is like focusing on McLaren and all the things that they did wrong. And so they pit him. But even outside of that, the worst things for Lando was that they kept having to restart the race. Whether it was after a safety car, whether it was after a red flag, and every single start was awful. Everybody was like, those things are behind him. No, they are not. I don't know if it's mechanical or him. I'm kind of leaning toward it's him, because it doesn't matter whether it's a rolling start or a standing start. He sucks at starts when it comes to racing.
Lando Norris dressed as a traffic cone for Halloween. And for some reason, we couldn't see that until, every time he started, he would lose a spot. And yeah, it's his biggest problem. And the issue with that being the biggest problem is that costs you points that you desperately need. And now it costs points that McLaren desperately needs.
Lando Norris is no Sha'Carri Richardson. Sha'Carri has poor starts, but finishes her races. Lando, no way, no chance.
Like one of those starts, he ended up getting fined, could have gotten a penalty for, and is another iteration of like, did your team not communicate? Like it is the job of somebody on the team to have that rule book forward and backwards. The drivers should know the rule. They've been told the rule multiple times. But if they don't, somebody on your team should be telling you. And I'll point out that drivers the same age as him who started in the same rookie class were on their radio saying, why are they going? Did they get a different call? They thought that they heard the radio wrong because they didn't understand why Lando was going.
You just reminded me, that was a great point you just made. Because in college football, every coach is supposed to know the rules. Every coach has what we call a get back coach, right? He's the guy that's like, oh, he's about to run the field and do some stupid stuff. Pull the cord, bring it back. Lando needs a get back coach. That's what he needs. We've just figured it out here on this show. He needs a get back coach, somebody who's gonna be like, look, what you just did is dumb. Stop doing that. Like, pull the cord, get back in line, focus on what you're supposed to do.
In a soccer-related twist, I nominate the gay little car from the Women's Euros, the little gay Volkswagen, to be Lando's get back coach.
I think Lando needs several coaches. All right. So also, Deepti, I appreciate you wanting to stick up for Oscar Piastri. I do appreciate that and I agree with you for the most part. My other problem, though, in this race, Max qualified 12th, which he was really hot at because it was a red flag that came out. That Red Bull was all mad because they felt like it came out late, and it did come out late, but I also understand the reasoning, and it was actually funny when they tried to explain to Christian Horner afterwards what the reasoning was. He had no argument. He was just like, it's just like, thanks for arguing back. But
whomst among us hasn't been realized we have the wrong answer in an argument and just stormed off.
Just make an inaudible noise. Just yeah. That was kind of what he did, and it was just like, okay. But yes, Max had a fantastic race. He passed 7 cars on the first lap. Like, he was just outrageous. And I'll talk because I do want to talk about him quite a bit. I know this is definitely, we don't have Max Verstappen fans on this podcast, but there is respect for him. And I'll get to why he annoys the hell out of me, because he can do stuff like this, but still whine all day. And that's what is annoying for me about him. But when it came to him passing Oscar was like, yes, right on this way, sir. Come right on through. And I'm like, fight. Nobody was fighting Max. Yeah. Nobody except Leclerc. Leclerc fought him for a while. And that was really important because, and that's what allowed McLaren to stay ahead, or at least try to have Lando pass George eventually. But if he wouldn't have pitted, they would have been fine because Leclerc was doing, and then Leclerc pitted for some reason. So Ferrari kind of Ferrari'd anyway. But that to me is the concern. Oscar, I mean, think back to some of Max's championships back in the day. Checo would absolutely park his car, just be a bus in the way of other cars and be like, you're not passing. I'm sorry. These are the team orders. This is my job now. My job is not to climb up in the race and get more points. My job is to keep you behind me. And he would do a great job of that. That's one of the reasons why they're so loyal to him, because they know how much he helped Max. Oscar hasn't got there yet. So he saw Max in the rearview mirrors and was just like, all right, buddy, looks like you want to win a race today. You go on right ahead.
Yeah, I will say, I was taking notes while I was watching this race, and I do have in all caps, Oscar, why don't you defend? Why is no one defending Max? But again, it happened so quickly, and listening back to Oscar's radio calls, I almost wonder if he just hasn't had enough practice racing in wet conditions, and that not being able to see where Max was behind him, he was just like, I can't do this, because obviously the people on the radio are going to tell how fast cars are coming up behind them, but if you can't see them, I guess you don't really know what moves to make to defend. So maybe that was it. Maybe that's where the hesitation came in. But you're right. No one was defending. Max drove phenomenally, but people weren't stopping him.
If you happen to bump into Max, it's fine. Like, it's just fine. It would work out fine for McLaren. And like, they're still going to have a driver get plenty of points, whereas Max is the only car that can actually get points. Like, not to saying wreck or anything like that, but just saying you can live on the edge a little bit in your defense.
Deepti, did you listen to Oscar's radio during that move? I know you mentioned his radio.
Not during the part where Max went past him, but
okay. And I'm gonna speak out of ignorance. I'm gonna believe something on Twitter, and that might be a bad decision. So podcast listeners, do not hold it against me if Twitter was wrong. But I saw a tweet that said that McLaren did not tell Oscar that Max was coming up on him. And again, not to be a broken record, but that is a team failure. If you do not alert your driver, especially in the rain when they're trying their hardest to keep everything together, hey, Max is coming. Hey, be prepared to defend. It is a lot harder to react in wet weather. Also, just to like defend some people, our group chat, to let you into the group chat, our group chat had a whole discussion about like, why is Alpine not defending? And the reason Alpine was like, fuck this, go right ahead, is because they desperately needed both of those cars to cross the line, and they were praying that they would cross the line high. And so for especially backmarker teams, they were like, we need every point we can get, so we're not going to defend. That does not let off McLaren, does not let off Ferrari, does not let off, unfortunately, the other Red Bull drivers who nominally VCARB is Red Bull, like, they're going to open the fucking door and like roll out the red carpet. But the other top teams, even Aston Martin, to be honest, like, they should have fought him, and it is a bummer in a lot of ways that they were just like, oh, didn't see you there.
It's every race. They do it every race. We have to talk about Max Verstappen just like, oh, he's in 17th. I'm like, guys, call me when he's back in third. Because he's going to be back in third in like 3 laps, because everyone's just going to be like, oh, my bad, Max. Go on through. It's a courtesy that I have not seen afforded a driver ever on the circuit. And yes, it's because his teammates are like 1/4 of the circuit. But very like Lewis had to fight for every spot that he got when he was champion. Rosberg had to do it. Senna had to do it even back in the day. Schumacher had to do it. Nobody just said, oh, by the way, like, oh, my bad, I didn't see you behind me. And the thing about Lando doesn't have a terrible team. He has shitty friends. Because even a friend would tell you, yo, man, behind you, right? Like, check your boy behind you, he's coming. Like, if nobody said something to him, like, he needs to get some new people, because his people around him just don't like him.
Mike, so like you mentioned VCARB, like, I thought Lawson was going to fight for a second, because he was just like, "Oh, this could be fun," and then he was just like, "Oh, it's Max. Never mind. Let's just go."
Yeah.
If
all
it was
of Red Bull has a get back coach. All of Red Bull has a get back coach.
Yeah, they'll let you scrap with Checo. You cannot scrap with Max.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Liam hates Checo.
Yes.
And he's like, I'm coming for your spot. And it's the funniest thing I've ever seen in racing for like the last 3 races. It's the best thing in the world.
Liam is the epitome of the 2 wolves inside you theory. Like, he 100% was like ready to pull up, and he was like, ah, shit, wait, my like job security depends on me allowing this to happen. But he was ready.
He did it. He started it, and then he was like, "Oh wait, no, that's Max." And then he was like, "Let me slow down." I said, "Let me crash. You want me to go this way?" I was like, "Damn, dude, what's happening?" And I hate it because Max on that same fucking turn 1 going inside, and
every time.
Nobody went inside. Nobody covered it off. They were just like, "Oh, there's Max," and
except for Leclerc.
Yeah, Leclerc was the only one. And I'm like, and the commentators were like, he's finding quite a bit of grip out there. I'm like, well, why doesn't anybody else go down there? Like, it's not just the Red Bull is special. Like, do something, like, use that line. I really didn't understand what was going on. But I mean, like, obviously some of the drivers that he passed, that was going to happen anyway. Like, the car was fast enough. Max is good enough, whether it was turn 1 or turn 3. But still, I want to see some fight. Like the thing we've always been told is that drivers hate to be passed. They hate being overtaken. Like everybody's super competitive, but when it's Max behind them, everybody's like backs off.
You know, when Liam was called in the principal's office, you know Christian Horner was definitely like, you cannot scrap with Max, but go at Checo all you want.
Yeah.
As long as, yeah.
I was also saying, like, for as good as Max drove, and you know, any of us would hate saying that, for as good as he drove, Max Verstappen won by driving straight, which is not something that he normally does. He's normally weaving all over, cutting people off, and doing Max things. He literally just had to drive straight, and people were just letting him through and going, "Oh my goodness, how did he pass me? Oh, he's passed me on the inside." He's the guy that's trying to fly around the outside and try to Tokyo drift past you. Like, no, he just drove a normal lap, and everyone else kind of got out of his way. And he was like, wow, it's very clear if I just drive a normal lap. So he just kept doing it because he knew that the grid is just going to let him go by. And especially, like, and again, goes back to what we said a couple weeks ago, people are scared that if they get into a scrap with Verstappen, FIA is going to side with Verstappen and they're going to get penalized. So they don't want to do it. They don't want to mess up their car. They don't want to mess up their spot in the grid. So they're just going to let him do it because he has that courtesy now. And he knows it. So he's just going to continue to do it until somebody takes matters to their own hands, which, for safety reasons we don't want. But really FIA is going to be like, no, you are a terrible driver. You do terrible things on the track, and we have to penalize you every single time now. Until that happens, he's just going to be able to go for a Sunday stroll in the rain, and people are just going to let him go by.
Sorry, the pun. It just got me.
The stroll?
So... hopefully not one into the gravel. Am I right?
We're going to get to it.
So Max won, whatever. The inevitable outcome. I want to talk to you guys about the great friends to enemies to lovers plot that we have going on here in F1 right now. And that is our sweet Alpine boys who made it onto the podium together and went from literally wanting to kill each other multiple times to hugging and talking about how they're just two little boys from Normandy who made it out there, and isn't it sweet? For those of you who aren't aware, Esteban, Ocon, Bestie, and Pierre Gasly are from the same part of France, grew up competing with each other, were BFFs. There's famously a picture where Pierre is sadly wearing a Manchester United jersey, but we will forgive him. And I know half the podcast audience just went, what? Anyway, they're sitting on a podium and they're looking adorable, and Ocon's got his little smile that he still has today, and it's adorable. And then sometime the story is either one cut each other off in a race or one stole the other's girl. And I'm going to let you just assume which one would be doing the girl stealing, right? Like, we all know which one is doing the girl stealing, right?
As Donald and I have said before, just watch the intro to F1 and tell me tell me which driver you think is giving off the vibes that I would steal your girl.
Yeah. Listen, he's French, right? Like, come on. I mean, they're both French, but he's like French. His name is Pierre, for God's sake.
His name is Pierre.
And so, like, something happened, and they even in their, like, little speech afterwards, Pierre was like, that is part of our story, and no one will ever know. And I was like, damn, just, like, you can tell us now, you're friends. Anyway, they had this very sweet moment where they're both celebrating with their teams. They turn to each other. They give each other a big hug. You can see Pierre's girlfriend in the background be like, holy shit, they're hugging? Wow, okay. And then they did this very sweet interview, which you guys should definitely look up, where they talk about, like, the experience coming from childhood and how Alpine was never going to do this. It was never going to be Alpine. And that's true. Like, truly, without the rain, there's no chance Alpine does this. But not only did they both get podiums that they're probably not going to get any other time this year, they also took their team from 9th place to 6th place in one race. They knocked down some folks. We'll talk about it in Gloomy Boy in a little bit. They increased, potentially, their monetary award at the end of the season by $40 million. By one race. And so that's part of the reason I bring up that, like, they had an incentive to let Max pass them, as shitty as it was, because this was life-changing money. This was winning the lottery, and you could see the reaction if you go to the F1 Twitter, of like the Alpine mechanics who realize, holy shit, we're going to have money to do things next year. That doesn't mean that Alpine's going to be good next year. They're probably still going to be bad, but it was pretty incredible to see two drivers work together, not fuck it up, do a very cute little lap together at the end. And now the next step we need is the lovers chapter, and we shall wait for that. Book talk, get ready.
On the broadcast, they said it was closer to 50 million, which again, like you could see the sheer joy on the mechanics as they were celebrating as the two of them crossed finish line. And again, in probable fashion, ain't nobody predict that. If you did and you put money on it, send it to this pod because you clearly don't need it, and you can get more. But I will say that whole thing afterwards with them like hugging each other and basically like, yo, no one knows our story. We've come from the depths of our relationship, came from the depths of hell. We were able to put it aside and work for this. It was the driver's version of the Hills when Lauren Conrad and Kristen Cavalieri finally kiss and make up. But that they really they still are enemies. But
Donald,
like,
you are my person
we're cool.
so much. You are my person. Oh
yeah,
my god.
I was going to say, is this their challengers moment?
Yes.
If you see their challengers, like this is the end of challengers.
Make out. Come on, let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah. But like the Hills, as you know, they come the next season and they're like, oh, they're tight again. And we're having a little break, right? Couple weeks. Oh, they're tight again. Is Alpine going to do something in Vegas? Then
No.
Something's going to happen that sends them back into their little funk. So we'll take the hill that they're on right now, the high that they're on, enjoy it. And the good thing is they get to enjoy it for a couple of weeks.
I will say it was clear the Drive to Survive was filming that weekend, and I would not be shocked to know that would be like the Alpine episode. So get excited in like 8 months from now when we get to see all the behind the scenes footage of them talking in French and looking flustered and adorable. And I'm very excited for it. So out of all the sadness, out of all the frustration, out of all of the like WTF FIA, what are you doing? It was very sweet, even in the miss of a Max victory, to get like a really cool moment and a reminder that like F1, even on the days where it feels like the top teams are kind of stacked against them, can still pull out a crazy result that makes it really fun.
I mean, Drive to Survive is living right now this season. I'm just gonna throw that out there. We thought they were cooked, and no, they're like, no, we're actually chefing right now. We're good. We're in the kitchen, and they are. I think a lot of people didn't think that Drive to Survive would survive in a sense, just because the drivers were just not really into it. You could see more and more drivers were just like meh, especially Max. But they might be on something this year. That's getting like at least 3 more years in that contract.
More about Alpine, I want to say, I think if I heard the commentators correctly, they said the last double podium for Alpine was 2013, back when they were still Lotus. And the last time that 2 French drivers were on the podium was 1997. It's been a long time.
Do you know who was on that podium for Alpine? It was Lotus at the time. It was Fernando Alonso. Baby Fernando Alonso was the last time that they did it. I also want to point out, and this fact made the group chat go a little crazy. In the time of this season, I think it was like in the last 19 races, Red Bull has had 0 double podiums and Alpine has had 1. So let the Checo slander begin. Continue.
My guy.
Continue.
My guy. Oh,
Checo slander. I came as soon as I could.
Can we now talk about the stroll in the park?
No,
on the formation lap.
Not yet. I'm sorry. I want to get to it. I have things to say about it, but I'm sorry. We do need to, as much as we don't want to, we do need to talk about Max Verstappen. He did win this race. He did start from 17th. He did come all the way through. Yes, it was aided by a red flag. Yes, there were safety cars. Yes, half the damn grid spun off and hit a wall, and Lance Stroll couldn't even start the race. Like, yes, all these things happened, but it was incredible. This is the thing about Max that gets on my nerves so much and makes him a great driver. He does not make mistakes. this is why he doesn't need to push the rules the way that he does. This is what gets on my nerves about him so much. And Red Bull as a team with their kind of righteous indignation and thinking that the rules should be bent to them. I'm like, you are not the only team on the grid. Like them being mad about that red flag that came out in qualifying that made Max miss Q3. They were trying to get other cars across the line because it was a dangerous session, and you just want you'd want to get as many times on the board as you can. And I know they can argue it, but they act like they are the only team in the world that matters. And I kind of understand it because the FIA has kind of positioned them like that for a while. But this is the thing that gets on my nerves with Matt. Even in the race, he said something like he didn't leave a car's width. I was like, shut up. Just
I remember that. Yeah,
like you don't have the right to be.
You're gonna pass him in 2
that.
seconds anyway. Like, chill.
Not only that, but you're the one who always drives people off the tracks. Shut up about that. But they always think the rules apply to everybody else, but not themselves. But a day like that day, like Sunday, that Grand Prix, you just see everybody else. These are some of the best drivers in the world. They can barely hang on to their cars. You know, Lewis is struggling. Checo is struggling. Everybody's struggling out there. Lando's struggling. McLaren as a whole is struggling. Fernando Alonso is struggling. They broke his back, apparently, like the way he was getting out of the car. Like everybody was struggling. But Max, as soon as he got in the lead, first of all, he got himself to the lead, and then he took off. It was a 19-second win. He just kept on getting fastest lap, breaking his own record because the dude just straight up does not make mistakes. It is an absolutely outrageous skill, but he couples it with some of the most annoying shit ever, the complaining and the rule breaking or rule pushing. When you are such a good driver, we want to see your driving talent. And the driving talent isn't, oh, well, this little loophole in the rules says I can do this and I can run a driver off the track. No, let's see your actual on-track driving talent within the lines. Let's see it because you have it. You have plenty of it. You're one of the best that has ever done this. And for some reason, he would rather complain instead of doing this. This is why this race was so great for him, because he didn't really even have those opportunities to do something so stupid. We just got to see pure driving talent. And it was a reminder that, yeah, when that Red Bull gets it right and they have the car, the dude's unstoppable.
Man City. I'm going to get canceled. But am I wrong?
Red Bull going to have 115 charges?
They, supposedly they're being accused of filling up their tires with water. So, or they're accusing people.
Yeah, they're accusing everybody else of doing that, but because they tried it already.
Yeah.
That was the funny thing that they admitted. They're like, "Hey, we've done this before."
Yeah, they're like, "How you know? How you know they? If they're doing it wrong too, because the way we hypothetically would do it is we would put the water in this."
The OJ "If I Did It" book for tires.
Yeah. It doesn't fit. You try to put a glove over your like a balled up fist. Look, it wasn't me. It was like, Jesus Christ.
But yeah, I think that's the part that's the most
We went to
infuriating.
OJ.
Sorry, yeah.
I just want to acknowledge that.
Whoops. Not comparison. He hasn't killed anyone, as far as we know. Sorry. Chaos. I bring the chaos gremlin energy. You nailed it though. Like the most frustrating part, and in some ways, I'm like, we talked last week, like bring back shame. I, in some ways, admire people who are so shameless because I am incapable of being like that. Like I do feel shame. I respect that he figured out I can just push and push and push and push, and there's never gonna be any sort of negative outcome. And even when there is a negative outcome, then I'm going to complain about it, and it's probably not going to be that negative. Homeboy is still complaining about being fined for foul language, which he shouldn't have been fined. Yes. But buddy, and move snitching. On. Like that fine was like 5 seconds of merch sale. Like, let's go. He like talks some shit about where are the British journalists after this race. Oh, they're already gone because there's a British bias in the media is what he's trying to imply. Like, it's just really infuriating. But I will say, on the flip side, on a positive, it makes me appreciate Lewis and his grace and his gracefulness in handling being a champion and being the best of all time. Because absolutely, because of this color of his skin, he would not have been given these chances. And that is really unfortunate, and it sucks that Max is able to benefit in that way. But Lewis had to suffer through a lot more, and a lot of people being really shitty, including Max to him. I will say, on the flip side, Lewis congratulated Max on Instagram, and I was like, this is bizarro world. Who got a hold of your phone? Like, I don't... what's going on? That was a little weird. But he has much more grace and kindness than I do, apparently. And I just like really appreciate that we had a champion for so long that like did things quote unquote like the right way. Because it is kind of frustrating. On the other hand, like if I was Max, right, and I knew I had a finite amount of time in the sport, I would try to win as much as I could. And it sucks that he picked the shameless way of doing it when he is such a good driver and doesn't need to do this, but he's doing it. So I don't know what to do. I need you FIA to do something, anything, please.
I mean,
Fight back.
I do feel like they tried, you know, like they didn't completely bend to Red Bull. Red Bull was caught out, you know, like the virtual safety car when he tried to get by Oscar in the sprint race and it ended not when he thought it was. He thought he was going to get a jump and instead he went too early and he got penalized for that. And he ended up in the final classification of the race. He got a 5-second penalty. So he ended up behind Leclerc, who when they crossed the line, he was third, Leclerc was fourth. That swapped around because of the penalty. And then again, the red flag came out for qualifying in the Grand Prix where he was 12th. He was stuck there. And it was because he couldn't complete his lap when they threw the red flag. That was kind of it. So, and if they would have done it sooner, there's a possibility could have gone in, could have got out, whatever. The session could have resumed. So Red Bull did not have the typical kind of support or ability to lean on the FIA to make decisions that favor them. And it still worked out this way, which to me is not like you did it in spite of. It's like, hey, maybe this is a lesson to just shut the fuck up sometimes. Like you're still good. You can still win. Just shut up sometimes. Nobody's against you. Just go and focus on your own race. Because when you do, and you have that driver, you're really damn good. So shut up with all the other stuff is kind of what I hope the lesson is that they learned, but I guarantee you they did not.
Look, there's very few guys on the grid who can pull off the start that he did at the beginning of the race.
Yep.
Like, let's just focus on that. He gained 6 spots before he reached turn 1. Turn 1's not this. It's not Mexico City.
Yeah.
They were driving for 5 seconds and he went from 17th to 11th. And then in the first lap, he caught Lewis like on the first turn of lap 2 and he was already in the points. And after that, like Lewis was fighting too. He fought one for a whole lap, but he just couldn't get a grip and somehow Max had it. I think that's what's frustrating is you see something like that and you go, man, that's a great bit of skill. That's a great lap to start off what turned into an incredible race. And he muddles that with all the other stuff. And even just his attitude, right? Like he's complaining, like he complains after races he wins. And we're like, yo, like, can you just be happy for once? Like, talk to your team. Like, congratulate them. Get them some ice cream or Happy Meal or something. Like, chill. But at the same time, like, every single time we watch him race, we know there's going to be a point where he complains. Whether it's to his team, to his principal, to Checo, to another driver. He's always out there making someone else feel like they are to blame for him not getting exactly what he wants when he wants it. And like, this is not Burger King. Like, you're not going to always get everything your way. You got to go out and earn it. And that's why we love Lewis. It's because Lewis was like, oh, we're just going to fight back. Okay, well, let's have a fight. We're going to let's have this race. So let's have this duel for several laps, but I'm going to win because I'm a better driver. I'm going to figure out a way to get around this. He wasn't handed anything. He earned everything. And Max is being handed an entire grid with half of his teammates, or half the grid being his teammates, or just at least guys that are minions that are being told to do what he does. And he still complains about them. Checo is sitting there driving into walls for people, for him, and they're like, yo, Checo he didn't have a good race. Like, if I'm his teammate, I'm like, okay, go win it by yourself. Like, go. Like, every other order that, like, Christian Horner wants to give me, I'd be like, nah, your boy said he can handle it by himself, so I'm over here in the corner. That's what's so frustrating about him. If he just lightened up a bit, from Stripes, lighten up, Francis. Like, lighten up, Max. Like, it's okay to be a nice guy on the grid and still be a competitor. And he just hasn't figured out how to do that. So when he does something like this incredible win that he had, we got to badmouth him about it because he did it the Max way, and the Max way is full of complaints. It's full of everything is going wrong, and did you, in your mind, the inevitability of I can't even get hype that he's 17th because I know in 3 laps he's going to be in the top 3 because everyone's just going to let him waltz by. That's just the way it is, but that's where Drive Survive started losing people, is because every year they tuned in for a snuff film. And Max was the guy doing the killing. And now this time there's at least a little bit of drama, and he's still providing the woe is me, everyone's out to get me, nobody likes this stuff. Like, he's the Yankees right now, and he needs to chill thinking that he's the A's, because he's not.
Ebony, I'm sorry, but F the Yankees.
Ebony's getting from Manchester United and Yankees.
Wow. You know what? This is a great pod. This is a great pod. Y'all have a wonderful night. Okay.
Catching more strays than Lance today.
Can we talk about Lance now? Can we talk about it?
I'm sorry. I have to say one more thing.
Okay, go ahead.
But I have to say one more thing. Because Donald, like, this is basically the end of Lando Norris's title hopes. Like, Max's lead now is 62 points. There aren't that many. There are 3 races left plus
3
a sprint.
races. Yeah,
it's not enough. Like, Max would have to like DNF in at least 2 of them, and Lando would have to like win those races plus a sprint to even like get close enough to be able to have a chance at Abu Dhabi. Like, it's just not happening. Okay, here's the thing. I'm actually silver lining to all of this. I wanted to see it go down to the last race. I really did. But the silver lining to me is I can stop acting like I have to like Lando Norris, because I have learned through this that I do not like that kid. I don't know what's wrong with him, but he is like the grumpiest kid alive. He is the wealthiest and most talented and grumpiest kid. I don't know what's going on with him. Why is he like this? I don't know if he's performing for something, but like, it's like if he thinks this is the way I have to be. But he is constantly like just so down about everything, and it's confusing to me because I'm just like what was before the race, or was it after the sprint race or something? And they asked him about the driver's champion. He was like, "Oh, I hate these questions." What do you mean you hate these questions? You should love getting these questions right now. Nobody expected this to be a driver's championship race at all. And now all of a sudden you're there. Relish this moment. People are asking you because you have a legitimate chance to do something awesome and to stop Max Verstappen, the dude that has been running this sport for years. This should be a moment that you enjoy, you look forward to talking about. And for him to be like, I hate this. I was just like, okay, then fine. Okay, championship's off now. You happy? Like, I don't know what makes him happy. He's just super, super grumpy all of the time, and it feels weird, and I don't know why he's like this, and it's annoying. I'm like, you know what? If we're going to have a championship challenger for Max, make it Leclerc, maybe Lewis in a Ferrari next season, maybe Oscar Piastri performs better now with another year of experience. I'm here for all of them over Lando right now because I'm just done with him. He's just such a strange personality on that kid.
Yeah, Max has an arrogance issue and complaining all the time. Lando has a nonchalance issue, but in a bad way. I don't know what the correct term for that is, but that, and after the race, I don't know if you saw his interview, but basically he was like, this was not talent. He won by luck. And I'm like, no. Max has the talent to win. That was absolutely a talented, great race. It was not just luck. Sure, there was some luck. Like, McLaren pitted you at the wrong time. You lost spots, blah, blah, blah. But he went from P17 to P1. Like, that takes talent.
Yeah. Like, he's just down all the time. And I'm like, that energy is weird. Honestly, to like emanate from a professional athlete, but also in a team where you're supposed to be a leader, you're super talented, you can be one of the best in the world, you have a chance to do something incredible, win a driver's championship. That energy to me is infectious in a lot of ways. And I also feel like maybe not going to blame it all on him because the McLaren make their own mistakes, but just in terms of being a leader within the team, having that energy just doesn't come across as like something that instills confidence or like I'm going to work together with this guy because we're going to make a good team. It feels like maybe a little weird to go like to have these interactions because he's just, I don't know, something about the vibes are off. The vibes are off with Lando.
It's giving spoiled brat, if I'm honest. Like, that's the energy it's given. It's just like, I don't have to talk to you because I did something wrong. I don't have to face the accountability. But yet again, broken record. I'm going to bring up the fact that that man said that if he had been in a Mercedes, he would have beaten Max all day, and that Lewis wasn't as good as him. And like,
Yeah.
again, I talked about it earlier. Lewis has
try
had
it?
to have a lot
try it out?
more, yeah, has had a lot more grace in dealing with stuff. And when he has a bad race, he still shows up and he talks. And I'll give Max props too. Like, Max is very honest in interviews, and sometimes he comes off like a petulant child, but he's gonna actually give you an answer. And you just, like, you don't have to answer media questions that wrong. Honestly, Lance Stroll does this too, where I'm like, buddy, you're getting paid millions of dollars. Like, at least pretend like you care and give an answer. And it's just, you know, on one hand, I want to support athletes, and like Naomi Osaka has talked about like not wanting to talk when she's in a bad headspace. Totally get that. But for Lando, it does seem like he is just not ever willing to take accountability on some stuff and say like, here's what I'm going to do to improve. Honestly, Leclerc used to have the problem of taking too much accountability, to the point that it was like giving him like a negative headspace. I think he sort of sorted that out now, at least in my like personal opinion. There's a happy medium between not letting it affect you long term, but also still recognizing I got to talk to these people, and I did have a part in this experience. And Lando just hasn't figured that out. And it's kind of hard when there's not a ton of accountability. Some backstory, his team is his family. His dad is his manager. And so like, I don't know how much his dad is being like, hey, you can't do that. Or like, hey, you should look better, you know?
So I disagree slightly on spoiled brat type of stuff being his main issue. His main issue has been identified. He knows that he cannot start a race worth a damn. The entire grit-eating world knows he cannot start a race worth a damn. His problem is he has no interest in fixing it. And he has no interest in figuring out a way to maybe go a little bit faster when you are on the pole. The last 7 races, he has been on pole 5 times, and he has won just 2 of those races. In every single one of those races, he lost the lead on the first lap, or the first turn of the first lap. That is not a psychological problem. Everyone knows what the problem is. He talks about, I need to start better, I need to do this, and he doesn't have any, like, interest in trying something different, or like, hey, maybe if I do this, you know, maybe if I stay inside instead of go outside, maybe these guys won't go around me and pass me like I'm a traffic cone. He has no interest in fixing what is wrong with him, and that is why he is losing. We got to the point where he was like, oh, I'm just gonna maybe creep from behind. He can't do that no more. He's in a McLaren. McLaren's at the top. They have the targets, right? And in the drivers' championship, even though Max is number 1, the target really was him because he was number 2. If you think about it, everybody in the grid wasn't chasing Max, they're chasing him. And he just was going to up and let him do it because he has no interest in fixing the one thing that is really plaguing him, and that's his bad starts. Every sprinter works on their starts 9 million times for that one moment. And if they mess up, they're so pissed off with themselves that they're like, I need to keep working on my start to do it again. He clearly doesn't do that. He don't study no tape. He don't work on his starts. He doesn't like practice in the video game. Yeah, he's not doing that. He's not putting up shots, and it shows. Because every single time we show up for a race, we're like, oh, Lando got pole. And again, just like Max being P17, we don't get up about it because we're like, oh, he's pole. What's he going to do? Is he going to give it up on the first lap again? And the 2 races that he didn't, he won. So there's your problem right there. If he doesn't want to fix it, that's on him.
I think it also goes back to what Megan said. Like, he has said, like, oh, the start's on a problem, or we identify, like, it's always something else. It was something in the start phase or the launch of the car or whatever. And it's like, okay, got you. Like, the second phase looked bad as well, like in the wet. Like, you could see that. George flew by him. So, yes, maybe it's that. But also, when you do get the phases right, when the car launches, you still don't place the car where you should. You still don't cover off corners. You still don't, close doors the way that other drivers do. You've seen it from Max. You've seen it from Charles. You've even seen it from George Russell starting from pole. We've seen it. Other drivers do that, and he does not. He routinely doesn't. And so, yeah, that is a concern, and that's just something he's going to have to continue to work on. But like I said, silver lining for me in all of this is that maybe we can start 2025 with a brand new batch of drivers and cars, and hopefully with the regulation set being like kind of like, this is the 2025 will be the last year for it. Everybody's going to make as much improvement as they can. This will be the closest the cars are until we kind of figure out who the hell has the lead in 2026 when the new regs get there. But like, hopefully we get better championship contenders, because it has been one of the most frustrating things to hear Lando talk about, interviewed so much, because he just doesn't come across great. Okay, now we can talk about Lance Stroll. Who wants to start?
I do, because Lance Stroll, ladies and gentlemen, decided on the formation lap to go Tokyo drifting on a straightaway, first of all. Second of all, after doing that, he decided he was going to go through the gravel to get back into the track to get into the formation and maybe salvage his place. And he drives straight into quicksand, it felt like, because it been raining
into the gravel
all weekend. And it's like the gravel turned to quicksand, and he goes out there. There's a tweet of like people in the stands like watching him do this, and like basically they're basically chanting in Portuguese for him to drive into the gravel and just end his day, and he just does that, and they just go ballistic.
It will be in the show notes. Please watch it, because it is hilarious.
It is incredible, because again, those people knew, Stroll ain't about this life. He's about to run his car out of the race before it even starts. Do you know how bad you have to be to do that? And to see that there was track available for him to drive back onto the track, and he said, "Nah, gravel. We're going gravel hunting."
There was a route to go around and get back on the track, and he said, "Nah."
There's a route. Yeah, he didn't have to go around either. He could have just gone straight, like just turn right and gone right back where he came from, and it was all pavement. And he didn't do it.
He said,
"Dumb.
I'm wet. I'm cold. I don't like this. I'd like to go home. I would like to not be doing this anymore." And honestly, I respect a quiet quitting man. I respect a man. I need more men to quiet quit, if I'm honest.
Don't mess up the car while you do it, though. Like, hey, if I don't want to drive, you know what I do? I call Uber.
Let Drugovich have that
just take an Uber.
Uber
Daddy got it.
Call daddy.
Uber F1. Like, let's go.
Speaking of daddy, by the way, because I here's my read on that Lance Stroll thing, because it was so stupid. Like, it was just so ridiculous that man just beached his car on purpose. To me, this is Lance Stroll telling his dad that he just wants to dance. He doesn't want to do this no more. He just wants to dance. He wants to live a free life. He wants to live a life in the arts. I don't know what he wants to do with his life. This ain't it, because this ain't the sort of thing you do if you want to race.
No, if guys, I have the off track drama. His girlfriend the day before deleted all his pictures off her Instagram.
Oh, he was in his feels. Oh,
he was listening to that sad music in that car, and he said, "I just need to go cry it out alone," which I respect. Healthy emotions. But homegirl deleted all her pictures. I think Lance Stroll's back on the block.
All right. Breaking news on the podcast via Instagram.
That should mean he should be driving even faster. He should be like, "Yo, I'm about, hey, yeah, I'm gonna show her what's up." He should have had the best race of his life, coming out there like, "Oh, I'm back in these streets. Let me get back in these streets. Let me get back in my vehicle and drive."
I think he knows he's not capable of making that statement on the track.
There's two types of people, and he is not that type. He's a grand opening, grand closing.
He's not either one of them. There's two types of people, and then there's slants.
And he ain't none of them. That's
tried to spin the block and ended up in the gravel on his own volition.
Oh, it's so fun. Please watch the video. It is so hilarious.
Because he just gets out the car, like,
yeah, he just beaches it straight up.
After in qualifying, he crashes, and his mechanics have to fix his car in like 2 hours or 3 hours, however much time, and then that's what he does on the formation lap. What a way to say thank you.
That's the other point, is that this was the formation lap. This wasn't the start of the race or anything. This was just the cars going around, getting themselves in formation, and he slid off then. And it's like, yo, listen, if you don't want to drive anymore, just be honest with your dad. I don't know if you've tried that before, but like, this ain't it, because this is just comical. Like, nobody does this. This is so weird. I thought it was amazing.
It's like one of those movies, Disney movies or whatever movies, you know, the parent who's forcing their kid into this like, macho sport, and he's like, "No, I just want to go be
he's Troy Bolton.
Be a dancer." Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There we go.
He's Troy Bolton. He doesn't want to play basketball. He wants to get his head in the game and go do some musical theater. And you know what? buddy, that's fine, but give up your spot. Let somebody else who cares. There are too many talented drivers not making the grid, and it's an embarrassment for you to do this every week.
After crashing his car, going Tokyo Drift on the formation lap, and then deciding he wanted to jump on the beach and go draw me like one of your French drivers, like this man right here, the entire paddock, the entire Aston Martin team should give him a code red. Like you gotta do something. Like you gotta just be like, look, man, step in here. We just got to wail on you for an hour because we did all that work for you to come back and act like you're a niece. Like what are you doing here? And it astounds me that if all the driver changes around here, he is still the constant. Like he's one of the, like, if you think about it, he's one of the, he is now in the longevity portion of F1 for no reason whatsoever other than his dad. Like it's, ladies and gentlemen, the Lance Stroll stray, the great thing is he served us up something we ain't got to give him strays. We could just give him the beef direct. Like, you're trash, man. You're just really bad.
The worst part is he's going to be driving an Adrian Newey car next year. This life ain't fair.
Is he?
I think well, that's a good question.
Yes.
We'll see.
No, his dad loves him too much. Honestly, respect to his dad.
Scheduled to. He's scheduled to.
He's going to get a placebo.
Okay, we've been going along, so let's go ahead. Let's go straight to Gloomy Boy and Zoomy Boy. And actually, we're going to keep the bad vibes going because we've been talking about Lance Stroll. So we're just going to go straight to Gloomy Boy. We'll finish with Zoomy Boy, finish with some good news. So, okay, the Gloomy Boy is just who had a really bad weekend. It's not necessarily who didn't finish, who DNF'd or anything. Like those things are easy. You can look up the driver standings. This is just like who had a bad day or days, plural. So, Eboni, who's your Gloomy Boy?
Checo.
There it
is. I just want to put it out there, man. A black suit on the first day of that 9 to 5 is gonna go such a long way. Okay, keep it classy,
keep it basic. Yeah, keep it basic, keep it classic. Like this is your first time on camera on the job. You can't go wrong. I feel it. Fair enough. Megan, who is your Gloomy Boy or boys?
Williams F1 team. You guys were having some good vibes to end the year. You're absolutely heartbroken. You're now in 9th place. And I don't see that changing, unfortunately.
Facts. Deepti, who you got for Gloomy Boy?
I'm going to cheat and go with 2 because there were so many options to choose from this time. I'm going to say Carlos because he was having a fairly decent weekend and then DNF'd, crashed out. But I think my real one is Lewis. That car is just not doing anything for him. In fact, it's probably hurting him, like, physically. So, yeah, Lewis.
Yeah, Lewis had a great moment driving Senna's McLaren around the track, and that was like he said that was his best drive of the week, and I was like, damn, shots fired. But also, I respect it. Donald, your Gloomy Boy.
Mine is Nico Hülkenberg because he's the only one who had to retire his car in the sprint. He the only one who didn't finish, and then in the actual race, he got 27 laps. He spun out, and then inexplicably let the marshals kind of push him back into play. And ended up getting the DQ. So after a couple of weeks of Haas doing well and Nico Hülkenberg kind of, leading the charge there of thinking that Haas was going to do something, he had a terrible weekend. And chalk it up to rate if you want to or whatever, but he's my Gloomy Boy.
Yeah, it's one of those rules in F1. You can't get outside help, and he had the stewards help him, or some of the trackside people help him get out of that, and you can't do that, so that automatically was black flag. Your race is done. And I'm really sad about that because I put Nico as my prediction for Zoomy Boy, so I was super wrong. My Gloomy Boy, we just talked about him. It's Lance Stroll. Like you said, I just think he wants to dance, and he's stuck doing this F1 thing, and he beached his car on purpose, it seems, and that was very strange before the race even started. So I don't know where his head's at. Maybe he's in his feelings. You got the breaking news about his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend perhaps. This seems like a tough time for Lance Stroll. Maybe his dad will let him dance, and we can have somebody else in that car next year, but I doubt it. Okay, Zoomy Boy, let's end on a positive note. Eboni, let's go back to you, Zoomy Boy.
There's 2. So Lawson had a sneaky good race to me. But also the FIA put in some work They they had a ball this weekend. So when we do our full stewards room, we have a lot to discuss. Just from Brazil alone, it was 91 documents. So they put the work in. They had a solid 69 laps of a race, and before, because they went ham. So I'm gonna give them the Zoomy Boy too.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, the FIA was busy. Stewards were busy. Megan, who you got? Who's your Zoomy Boy?
Liberty Media for having great F1 ratings, because although it's not going to continue to be a title fight for the driver, most likely, it is still a constructor's fight. And this was, like, we said it's an unsafe situation, but it was like an entertaining situation. And I feel like objectively a lot of people tuned in who would not normally tune in.
Yeah, fair enough. Donald, your Zoomy Boy.
Well, I have a team. It's Alpine. With honorable mention being the safety car guy. But Alpine, how could you not pick them after the weekend that they had, finishing 2-3, vaulting, as Megan said, from 9th to 6th in the constructors, and that, the amount of money that comes with that if they're able to hold on to that. So, and they actually can push for 5th too, in these last 3 races if they're able to continue getting points.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, they had a very, very good weekend. It was great to see them on the podium as well. Like, both those cars, they were brilliant in the wet conditions. I don't know what it was. They didn't even know what it was. They were just like, had no idea the car would be like this, but we're glad we're here. Some of it was strategy, though, and this is why my Zoomy Boy is Yuki Tsunoda, because I do think that the team messed him up on strategy, because if you look at qualifying, who was third? He was third. He outqualified Liam Lawson. He was ahead of Ocon, and he had opportunities to get on the podium in that race, and I really thought it was going to happen, and unfortunately it did not. Gasly even started lower, and he was 15th. So Gasly had a great race to get up there as well. But yeah, really disappointed in the way that the race unfolded for Yuki, because I really wanted a Yuki podium, but I will not forget Yuki Tsunoda and the race that he had, because it was impressive to see, and he very much needed it, because Liam Lawson, as we said, is kind of here. Like, he's here and throwing elbows, and I'm kind of here for it. All right, Deepti, your Zoomy Boy.
Yes. Well, I was going to ask for, I was like, can I go with the safety car driver? But no, I'm going to go with George Russell. He actually had quite a good weekend. He was in points in the sprint race, qualified P2 for the main Grand Prix, and save for strategy error by his team, he probably would have finished higher. Honestly, he might have podiumed, but he got P4, and he pitted under, like, just before the red flag, and he was visibly frustrated afterwards. You could hear him as soon as red flag came on. He started yelling at his team. He's like, I told you we should have stayed out. But even apart from that, he drove well. P4 in a Mercedes, which honestly doesn't seem great. So him doing that and being able to control the car was a good drive for him.
Yeah, fair enough. George did well, and I think that you just see the juxtaposition between him and Lewis, and I don't know what's going on there, but they're clearly prioritizing George, which, they would do because Lewis is leaving, so you kind of understand it, but oof, the contrasting races that those two had, it's a lot. All right, now we can get out of here. Like I said, Megan is gone, but that's okay. We already got her Gloomy and Zoomy Boy. Donald, Eboni, Deepti, a hell of a race. Just a hell of a race. A lot happened. We'll keep an eye on the constructors and everything else. We'll have a few episodes coming out that we may be talking about Stewart's decision. We might do a couple other fun episodes, maybe do another rookie season to get deep on another team. So we'll have content out between these races. And the next one is what? Vegas? We'll definitely be covering
Vegas.
Excited.
Vegas.
It's going to be interesting. But okay, we're out of here. Vroom, vroom.
Vroom, vroom.